Okay, I'm doing this to explain why I have to sort of take a vacation from the yapping videos for a while. What I'm finding, as you saw in the last few videos, is that Isaiah is in fact tracking history in each clause, syntactical clause of the Hebrew. It's a certain number of syllables. By that, Israel was supposed to know how to count the time. She would be doing it prophetically until the event came to pass. And then after it came to pass, she would be able to look back and say, oh, see, this is what happened. It would be her history lesson in the past once it came to pass. But until it came to pass, it was eschatological for her. Okay, and he's doing it by clause. This is a really big shock. I can't believe the Jews don't know this. Maybe they don't talk about it to the Goyim. But I can't believe that they didn't teach this. Because I can see it, and I'm a Goyim. Goy. Okay, Goya. Maybe I'm not a Goya. I'm adopted. Maybe I'm Jewish. I don't know. Okay? Now, it starts with Isaiah 53:1, as you saw in the Sennacherib video. And Isaiah is being very precise. And I know something of his methodology now, but I have to do a lot of homework in history to understand what he's doing and why he's doing it for that particular event. I sort of know what the events are. I just am not 100% sure why he's benchmarking them. Okay, so I'm going to just sort of summarize what the events are and tell you where they are. Okay, and that way you can do it yourself if you're anal like me. Okay, because it's a perfect accounting. Alright, first I got to tell you what his rules are. Okay, the first thing you got to know about Isaiah is that he's counting in years from Adam. So you can't use our BC AD dates. Now I plotted the years from Adam in GeneYrs.xls. Link will be in the sidebar. So when he starts Isaiah 53:1, which is when he's starting current history, the first 77 syllables are about David. That's why I got to take a break. I've got 620 hours of Bible study on David, and I got to go through that to figure out why he's benchmarking what he benchmarks. So I'm not going to talk about the David part, the first 77 syllables now. We're starting in Isaiah 53:1. At the beginning of Isaiah 53:1, all right, it's roughly within 6 months, 712 BC. It's really years from Adam, so you take 712 BC and minus 4106 to get the equivalent years from Adam. And, as you saw in the Sennacherib videos, the pair of them, he's starting at the beginning of what kind of year? A solar year. That's the Jewish year that starts with 1 Nisan, which is on the vernal equinox, and ends the minute before the next vernal equinox. God never uses lunar year accounting. That was a secondary thing that had to be done for the new moon festivals and the agricultural feasts. That was not the calendar. I explained that in an earlier part of part 10. Showing you from the book of Exodus where God instituted a solar calendar based on Israel's birthday. Birthdays are always solar measure, okay? So Isaiah is using that calendar that God instituted in Exodus. So he starts with 1 Nisan and he ends at the end of Adar. Now Adar, okay, all the months, this is the second thing I gotta tell you, all the months are 30 days except Adar. Adar is 35 days, and sometimes 36. Depends on whether the vernal equinox is happening before or after sundown. Alright? So, all the Jewish calendar that you know today, you cannot use it. You have to use the ancient calendar that God instituted. I don't know how the Jews, changed it or why. But, they've been persecuted for 3,000 years, so cut them some slack. Alright? But it's 30 days each, except Adar ends up being an extra week. Now, 1 Chronicles 24 are the priestly courses, and you had the priests each serving 2 weeks a year, 1 week in the first 6 months and 1 week in the second 6 months of whatever was his, relative to his term. Okay, and I outlined that in heapcal.htm, that's in the sidebar. So the first thing is that you count from Adam, years from Adam, Okay, that's in my GeneYrs.xls to make it simpler. The second thing is you're using a solar year. The third thing is this kind of solar year it is measured from 1 Nisan to the end of Adar, which is usually 35, sometimes 36 days. And you don't have to really worry about that because the next vernal equinox is always 1 Nisan. And he automatically adjusts for that in his calendaring. Alright? Now, let's see, we did, here's from Adam, solar year, 1 Nisan to the end of Adar. Oh, and he's always measuring from beginning or ending of year. In other words, if the event that he's measuring to, benchmarking to, is occurring at the end of the year, like one of these is a benchmark to the dedication of the Second Temple, that was done in Adar at the end of the year. Then he picks up the next clause after that, immediately after that. Alright, so if it was Adar, then he picks up the next clause, because he ends a clause at Adar when the temple's rededicated, the Second Temple. Then he picks up the next clause at Nisan. Alright, so it's beginning of year, end of year. And he's also measuring by last birthday. That's a convention we use in actuarial science you guys don't usually know about. But it's really very simple. You're 30 years old until you're 31. So when he says, when he's measuring to somebody being 33 years old, like he does in the Isaiah 52:14's first clause, it's 33 syllables at the end. That's a play on Christ paying for our sins at age 33. When he does that, if you look at the text, you'll see how apt that is. When he does that, he's playing on age. Okay, you're 33 until you're 34. Got that? So you have to sort of know his birthday to know if you're near 34 or not. And that's going to matter because that's what he's doing with the Sennacherib thing in Isaiah 53:1. Sennacherib comes at the beginning of Hezekiah's 14th year, and Hezekiah's 14th year is at the beginning of the calendar. Because, as I showed you in the Sennacherib videos, God gave him this prophecy. This year, eat what grows by itself, which means it hadn't grown yet, which means it was Nisan. Eat what grows by itself. The next year you eat what grows by itself, and the third year you're going to eat your own crop that you planted. That's sabbatical year accounting. That was the rule for the sabbatical year. So God's saying treat it like a sabbatical year. Okay? That was roughly 737, I want to say. Years, Israel was 737 years old. Okay? But the point is that you measure it in years from Adam, otherwise you're going to get all convoluted. And you'll be able to tell whether he's measuring from beginning of year or end of year. And then whatever he's measuring to, if it's like end of year, then the next clause is picking up the month after that. Alright? Now, that means that this little calendar here benchmarks all of Israel's future history from roughly 712 BC, give or take 6 months, to 37 AD when Christ was supposed to die. That's exactly the same kind of accounting that Moses did in Psalm 90, as I showed you in the Psalm 90 playlist. The difference here is that he's benchmarking every major event. And I'm going to read some of them just so that you know where they are, so you get a sense of how this thing works. Okay? I talked about Sennacherib already in the Sennacherib videos. That's Isaiah 53:1, first clause. Okay? By the beginning of Isaiah 53:2, by the end of Isaiah 53:2's first clause, which was he climbs like a sapling before him in my translation. Okay? Hebrew is Waya'al kayonek lefanai. Just after lefanai, that's the end of the clause, obviously. It's a syntactical clause. At the last syllable of lefanai, that's when Hezekiah dies. Alright? Now Manasseh had been ruling during the last 10 years of Hezekiah with him. So the last 45 years of Manasseh begins at that point. Alright? So when you get to the end of 53:2, you're not really at the end of Manasseh's rule. That was what was confusing me. You're at the time when he's taken away to Assyria. Okay, so that's 656 BC. I haven't honed down the month yet. Alright? So when Manasseh comes back, he's got another, let's see, there's 17 syllables in the first two clauses of Isaiah 53:3. 15 of those years are Manasseh's. Alright? 15 of the 17 years are Manasseh's, and 2 of the years are Ammon, but Josiah begins at the very end of the heartbreak man well knows love sick grief. Ish machovot udu choli. Just after choli, that's grief in Hebrew.